You are listening to Zari Ballard's When Love is a Lie video blog podcast. Today's episode is about narcissism and trauma bonding and how nobody does it better. So let's get started. Hey everybody, Zari Ballard here. Welcome to another When Love is a Lie podcast where we discuss anything and everything having to do with narcissism in relationships. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The When Love is a Lie video blog podcast is produced every couple of days for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at my blog, thenarcissisticpersonality.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at Zari Ballard and Facebook. All links to blog, books, and social media will be listed in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. Today, we're going to talk about trauma bonding and the narc and how nobody does it better. Feeling attached. Now, let me say, before I start, let me say that for guys listening out there, this refers to the female narc too. I only use the he and she because I'm speaking about my relationship with the boyfriend. So just kind of forgive me on that. Okay. It's all, it works for both guys and girls. Feeling attached to a narcissist or sociopath, even though he or she treats us badly, is a constant source of angst for those in recovery from toxic relationships. Victims want to know why. Why can't I just let go? Why can't I move on? Why am I feeling connected to somebody that doesn't feel connected to me? One answer to this is that we're normal and they're not. And normal people want to fix things that are broken so that they work again. The problem, of course, is that a narcissist can't be fixed because he or she was never right to begin with. In essence, the narcissist isn't even really broken. He simply is what he is, and what he is no good. This being true, what do we do after a discard when we can't shake the feeling of being only half a person without this person? Of feeling utterly attached, even when we're apart and even when he or she is with somebody else. Why can't we disconnect? Well, there is an answer to this for those who seek a deeper psychological reason for all the suffering, and it's a condition called trauma bonding. When we think of trauma bonding, we should associate it with the Stockholm Syndrome. Okay, and this Stockholm Syndrome is a condition named after a real-life situation. I think it was in, I want to say Switzerland or the Netherlands in 1977, where a group of hostages became emotionally attached to their kidnappers. And they went to court afterwards and wouldn't even had trouble testifying against this person because they felt love and attachment for this person. Okay. The Stockholm Syndrome, although certainly similar to trauma bonding, typically occurs in life-threatening situations where the victim is literally in fear of dying at the hands of the abuser. Trauma bonding is more descriptive of the attachment dilemma that occurs from the type of trauma caused to our emotions. For example, betrayal and neglect over and over and over. It's the type of bonding that can easily occur via passive-aggressive manipulation, like silent treatments, and other forms of narcissistic control. The narcissistic partner, as cunning as he or she is, understands the process for streamlining a victim's codependency to the point of least resistance. He's actually figured out, without a single day of training, that the best way to ensure narcissistic supply is to create trauma bonds with his targets via the method of seduce and discard, or blowing hot and cold, same thing. He has figured out an easy way to turn us into a narcissist enabler. The condition that leads to trauma bonding, the conditioning, I should say, focuses on two powerful sources of reinforcement that recur in succession over and over and at perfectly timed intervals. Psychologists call this reinforcement the arousal-jag, which actually refers to the excitement before the trauma, which is the arousal, and the peace of the surrender afterwards, the jag. Take a second to think about the narc's behaviors. Creating trauma bonds is what this person has been doing their whole life. Arousal-jag reinforcement is all about giving a little and then taking it away over and over in well-timed intervals. Narcs do this all the time, with disappearing, reappearing, silence, the chaos, giving you just enough, just in time, to keep you on the hook. Okay? This creates an illusion of excitement, twisted as it is, that reinforces the traumatic bond between you and them, us and them, you and her, or you and him. And to be clear, the narcissist feels a connection here too, only his connection is to the excitement alone and not to us. This is why a narcissist always has multiple partners, because it doubles and triples the excitement factor. The fact that we, as his victims, become so attached to the chaos that we eagerly await for him to come back for the Hoover is the added bonus. Are you getting it yet? Does it sound familiar? The excitement before the trauma of betrayal and neglect is created during the devalue stage. That point in time, right before a discard, when our intuition is telling us they're going to leave based on their behaviors. We become in tune with that. We can tell way before they even leave that it's on the very near horizon. It's that knot in the stomach feeling, the overwhelming urge to call his phone 100 times, to send 100 texts, to maybe do a drive-by. The torment of cognitive dissonance, the fact that we know better, okay, but we still do it. It's the hours spent scouring the internet for clues. It's the feeling we get from the chaos that a narcissist always creates right before the silence. Like it or not, we become highly addicted to this narcissistic behavior and all of the nonsense that goes with it. And we miss it like a motherfucker when it's gone. When suddenly the narc goes silent. We long for the connection, as manipulated and fabricated as it is, until we can barely breathe. Then right before we either kill ourselves or come to our senses, just enough, just in time, in swoops the narc, once again, to give us the second reinforcement. The jag, the piece of surrender that happens afterwards. This reappearance is meticulously timed for maximum effect and usually follows a silent treatment that has lasted just a tad longer than the one before. The narc is conditioning us to accept less and less so he or she can get away with more each time they vanish. Either way, this second dose of reinforcement, the piece of surrender, is like heaven. I don't know about you guys, but when my narc would reappear, I would feel like I could fly off into outer space. Okay? I could suddenly sleep. I could suddenly eat. I could go to work. I could laugh. I could smile. I felt like a real person. And even though that I knew that it was temporary, I was willing. I needed the relief. Okay? It's like an addiction. We get addicted to the narc, to the makeup sex, to the vanishing of our anxiety, just goes right out the window, and to the feeling of calmness and euphoria we get from knowing that once again, we've been given a reprieve to breathe until the cycle repeats again. Seduce and discard till the end of all fucking time. And at the moment it's happening, we're actually okay with that. In fact, there's no place in the world that we'd rather be. Our addiction to the narcissistic chaos and then to the reprieve also explains why we find it so hard to maintain no contact or to get into another relationship. Okay? No one excites us in quite the same way or with the same intensity as a toxic partner. Via trauma bonding, we become the suffering and the suffering becomes us. We forget what normalcy feels like. We stop differentiating between good excitement and bad excitement. The chaos and the turmoil becomes almost as big a turn on for us as it does for the narc. If we look back on, or inward on, if we're still in it, our relationship, we see that at the moment the idolized phase ends, the trauma bonding begins. We may not even have known it was going on then, but you can be sure that the narc did. Okay, they know what they're doing. As time passed and the narcissistic partner becomes more successful at managing down our expectations of the relationship, our connection to the nonsense begins to stick like super glue. But now that we know it, now that we know it, that there's a name for that strange hold this bizarre person has over us or had over us, we can make sure it never happens to us again. If we're still in the relationship, then we can get out and fast. Because unlike a hostage victim who trauma bonds with a kidnapper, we are not being held at gunpoint and we can't escape. Let us be grateful for that fact and do what we need to do to save our sanity. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, be sure to share with your friends on your forums, social media, and Facebook pages. And be sure to connect with me on Twitter, soon to be Facebook, and at my website, thenarcissisticpersonality.com. My books are on Amazon, available in paperback, Kindle download, and Audible, iTunes, and Barnes & Nobles. See you next time. This is Zari Ballard, and this is the When Love is a Lie video blog podcast.